Okay, in this question, it said that in a factory, it is important for a smartphone to be assembled efficiently. Okay, so that's just the preamble of the story. But it said that a new assembly process is trialed in the factory. Okay, then the engineer wants to test whether the average time taken by a machine to assemble a smartphone has decreased using a new assembly process, right? So this is just telling you why the engineer wants to do a test. Okay, so what does he do? He actually recorded the time taken to assemble a smartphone for a random sample of 60 smartphones out of n smartphones where n is large, assembled in a day when a new assembly process is trialed. Okay, so now first thing first, we need to explain what is meant by a random sample in the context of the question. Okay, so always remember in statistics question, it's important to answer in context. Okay, so what is a random sample? So random sample actually has two components, or rather, there are two features to it. So let's look at the first one. The first one is each smartphone. All right. So remember, it's talking about each sampling unit here. Right. Each smartphone produced on the day. All right. Because remember, the smartphone is actually selected from a day itself. So it's on the day. Okay. So what about each smartphone? It must have an equal chance of being selected as a member of the sample of 60 smartphone, right? In the context. So what is the sample size here that we're looking at? Okay, the sample size that we're looking at here. Right, so I repeat the first feature, each smartphone, that means each sampling unit, produced on the day must have an equal chance of being selected as a member of the sample of 60 smartphones. All right, and so here comes the second part. Each smartphone must be selected independently. All right, that means the selection of each sampling unit is actually independent of one another. This is the second feature. Right, so in random samples, when you're asked to explain, these two features must be clearly explained or described. Okay, the next part of the question then says, describe how the random sample of 60 smartphones could be selected. So this is actually asking for the process, okay, the process of selection. All right, and we want a random sample. So in the syllabus, you are definitely required to know simple random sampling. Okay, so let's look at what simple random sampling is about. So to select to select a sample of 60 smartphones out of n smartphones produced in a day, what do we do? Firstly, okay, we assign every smartphone produced on the day a corresponding number from 1 to n. All right, so this to enumerate every single sampling unit. Then we generate 60 distinct random numbers using a random number generator. Okay, we then generate 60 distinct random numbers. So this is important. Distinct random numbers using a random number generator. Okay, so what happens after you have generated the distinct numbers? All right, it's not sufficient to just generate the numbers. You need to then select the corresponding 60 smartphones. Right, so step 2 is over here, generating the 16 distinct numbers and then select the corresponding 60 smartphones. So this is what we call simple random sampling. All right, that will be all for question 8.